prior to jumping on the computer, I was watching old wrestling matches on YouTube, and it's the same crap then as it is now, but I'm like, this is when wrestling was good, and these guys are the best. And look, they're just as crappy as the guys that are out there now, but it's like, yeah, get off my lawn. I like Bret Hart.
Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hey, how's it going?
A while back, we had a discussion where we said we should find a franchise that no one understands and try to understand it. And my suggestion was Dynasty Warrior, because who understands Dynasty Warrior? And you revealed you understand Dynasty Warrior as best a human can. So we have gathered here today, and you're going to explain to me Dynasty Warriors.
All right. Yeah, Dynasty Warriors is a franchise that for a while there I've gotten really into. I think they're through 8 installments now, with the Dynasty Warriors 9 coming out next year. It is developed by Omega Force and published by Koei. And the original game is actually a lot different than the rest of the series. The very first Dynasty Warriors is a fighting game based on characters from the Romance of Three Kingdoms saga, which, you know, I'm sure people were really clamoring for a fighting game based off that. And their demands were met to thunderous apathy. It was not a huge seller, but they came back a few years later on the PS2 with Dynasty Warriors 2, which kind of set the tone for the rest of the series. And it's a different kind of game. It's a little bit beat 'em up. It's a little bit strategy, and it's a little bit historical fiction, I guess you could say.
So I played Romancing Saga 3 on the Genesis.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's a real thing. I know I played a Romancing Saga. I know it had a number after it. I had no idea what it was. I rented it. I was like, wow, this game looks cool by the back of the box. And then I was so confused. But the closest I think I've come to actually playing a complete Dynasty Warrior games was a launch game for the Xbox 360 called 99 Nights.
Okay.
And all you did was run around with a large pole and smack orcs around until someone told you to move to a new location, and then you did that. And I seemed to do it over and over again. And then I got to that last boss and I beat him, and it took me back to the beginning of the game, unlocked a new character, and then said, to see the ending, you have to beat it with this character. I didn't do that because the first time through wasn't as compelling as I would like a video game to be. So I don't know how much that is reflective of the Dynasty Warrior franchise, but Brad, what is a Dynasty Warrior game? Okay,
so from 2 through 8, the Dynasty Warriors games are kind of like a 3D beat 'em up, you know, like a Streets of Rage or a Final Fight, but in 3D, but also in prehistoric China. Not prehistoric, but like 100 BC through like, you know, early centuries AD China. And the best way to describe it is that there's a really big map. It's full of cannon fodder soldiers on both sides. And you are a general in one of the two armies. And you have to go through, and usually it's like kill the other army's leader. Sometimes it's like enter a part of the map or protect some guy as he runs away or whatever. You basically go through and slaughter hundreds of peons and then get into epic boss battles with the other generals. And when it's done really well, there's strategy to it and some nuance. And when it's done really poorly, it is exactly what everyone complains that it is, of just like hitting the square button over and over and over and just wiping out guy after guy mindlessly. So it's a real fine line between doing it right and not.
So it would be like you are down in the thick of it in, say, a StarCraft fight? Like you're a hero unit taking people out? It's like that kind of chaos? Or, I mean, it's not the same, but like when you're playing StarCraft, you're watching all your little men fight, and you're like, man, it'd be cool to be down there with them.
Yeah, and you're playing as basically like one guy who's like 10 times more powerful than most of the other guys down there. The regular soldiers in Dynasty Warriors are kind of there as sort of a distraction. They can't really do much damage to you. They aren't very aggressive in general. And in the games where they're effective at all, it's usually that they can interfere with you while you're fighting another boss. So they might interrupt your combo or something with like an attack that does almost no damage. Or they might like knock you down just as you're about to pick up a healing item or something. They don't do a whole lot other than just help you make your kill count go higher and higher and higher.
Before you start the fight, do you get any like, I want to take archers with me or spearmen, or does it just drop you in with a bunch of people and you just start?
It depends on the game and the franchise. You don't get a ton of options. You get to pick your weapon. Some of the later games you got to kind of add different properties to your weapon, like this one will do a lightning attack or whatever. And one or two of them, I think this was in Dynasty Warriors 3, you actually could get like a troop of like 2 or 3 bodyguards to follow you around. And you could decide if they were going to be like swords or bows or whatever. But there isn't a lot of like picking your armies. You're pretty much just assigned to an army. Then it's up to you to kind of turn the tide of battle.
So you're in a fight, you're trying to get to the enemy general. Do you have like sub-objectives to do, or did you just...
Usually you're trying to obtain your objective, which is usually kill the other guy. And you're also trying to prevent a loss, which is usually your leader gets killed. And depending on how well the game was made, if you talk to a critic, he'll tell you that all the Dynasty Warrior games are garbage, don't play them. And if you talk to a Dynasty Warriors fan, I think as a result of having critics downplay their series all the time, they'll tell you that every single game in the franchise is great. It's not really the case. Some of the games like Dynasty Warriors 2 and 3, there's some real strategy involved. You get a battle map that you can check out in the pause menu at any time, and you really have to pay attention to like what the other army's troops are doing, who's in danger, who needs support, can you get there? A really good strategic kind of battle is one where you might see like the general on your left flank is overwhelmed and you gotta like get over there and help him out before he gets overrun by the other army and opens up that whole side of the map to attacks on your leader. And sometimes you're trying to advance and the enemy army will be slowing you down and you have to like kill like every single soldier in that platoon. It's not enough just to kill the leader. If you kill the leader, the troops become really... They don't have any more initiative. They just sort of hang out and they attack anybody that's nearby, but they don't wander around. So in a lot of battles, killing their general, their immediate leader, is enough to really render them ineffective. But in certain battles, you really have to wipe them all out to clear the map so that your army can march through there quickly. Because they will get bogged down just like fighting these aimless guys that don't have a leader anymore.
So you're not the only hero unit on your side in the match?
No. It's usually, I don't even know the numbers anymore, but usually you have about roughly equal numbers of generals on each side. Some of the harder battles, you'll be outnumbered, where like the other team might have like 12 generals and you might have, 5 or 6. But for the majority of them, it's kind of even. And the advantage usually just comes from like one side's guys are stronger or have more troops.
Okay, so this makes more sense than everything I've ever been told about Dynasty Warriors. Now, I did do some looking up on this game. I was like, I'm going to have really great questions to ask Brad. But there's a lot of information about Dynasty Warriors out there.
Yeah.
And you go from sites where people talk about how it's the worst game ever to sites where people talk about how it's the staring at the face of God quality game ever. But one thing I noticed is for a game that is supposed to be historically accurate, everyone has weapons that put Final Fantasy to shame.
Yeah, they're not even consistent from game to game. Some of the earlier titles, as they added more and more characters, they made the weapons like crazier and crazier, and then somewhere along the line they kind of simplified things. They're like, all right, everybody gets a sword or an axe. But for a while there were some really bonkers weapons. There's, swords that are as big as the guy. There's one guy who fights for the Blue Army, which is the Wei Army, and he's just like a big fat guy with this like gigantic iron ball on the end of a stick that probably looks like it weighs about 10,000 pounds. There's another guy who's also on the Wei side, and he's got a giant axe with a bull's head carved into the handle, and then for a shield he just has like a horse head strapped to his arm. So that's pretty awesome.
He's like the godfather of China?
Yeah. He's just like, hey, I'm going to kill that guy's horse, and then I'm going to use its head for a shield.
I wrote down a couple here. The Shu Army.
Yes, the green guys.
There is a man named Guan Ping who has a sword that Cloud Strife would look at and say, dude, what? Because it's about the same length as Cloud's Buster, but it's about 3 times like as thick. There is no way someone could pick this up without pulling all the muscles in their body.
It looks like I've seen pictures of him like standing, like holding a sword in kind of like a downward like position, like he should be sheathing it, except that, the sword's bigger than he is. It looks like he's steering the rudder of a rowboat. Like that's how big it is. It just looks like he should be in a boat, and that sword is how you steer.
Yes, that is accurate. It's just like, hey guys, I brought a rudder. Let's hit people with it. Also on that army, we have Guan Yingping. And for some reason, she's wearing like little cat ears and has only way I could describe it is a metal pole at the end of a stick with spikes welded onto it. I think she has a cat tail too. I'm not sure in Chinese history if that was a common way to dress when going into combat. And then there's one guy I hear about a lot. Lu Bu.
Lu Bu is in every Dynasty Warriors game as kind of like this unkillable, godlike boss character. And basically, there are a few battles that are in every single Dynasty Warriors game. And one of them is the Battle of Hulao Gate, where you're leading an army and you're trying to kill this guy who is behind, the Hulao Gate, and you have to breach the gate or whatever. And Lu Bu always shows up in this battle and just starts wrecking everything. And the only thing you can really do is try to avoid him and hope that he just focuses on everybody else in your army and leaves you alone while you go kill the enemy leader. And depending on the game, he has a wife in the battle, and you can kill her, and that'll send him screaming back after you to hunt you down from anywhere on the map. So there's sort of a strategy aspect to it where you're trying to avoid him, but then if he gets too close to your leader, you go kill his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and he'll come charging after you, and then you real quick have to like kill the boss before he catches back up to you, because he will ruin your day.
When did this fight of the gate happen? What year?
I don't know the exact year, but in the games, it's generally like the first or second battle.
How does he know that you killed his wife? Like, how does that information reach him? Because I imagine it's the minute you kill him, you hear him be like, no, and come charging back. Like, was she was FaceTiming with him, and then you walk up and, like, stab her? He's like, no!
Communications in this era of Chinese history are actually, like, pretty advanced, like people will know from across the battlefield, like who's died, who's in trouble. You'll just be fighting somebody and all of a sudden you'll hear like someone on the other side of the battlefield, which, should be like miles wide, like, oh man, we're really in trouble. You gotta come save me. So I think everybody probably had cell phones.
Everyone had a bullhorn. So I did notice in one of the armies, Wu, there is a man named Zhu Ran, and I believe he's in Soul Calibur. this guy looks just like Khalik.
Yeah, he does.
I guess, to be fair, Soul Calibur is the stage of history, so this guy could have entered. They're like, what's your name? Zuran. No, try that again. Khalik? That works. So this Wu clan, though, everyone has pretty sensible weapons. Like, I mean, one guy looks like Maxi, sorta, from Soul Calibur. But are these just the guys who had actual weapons that showed up, and then they're like, holy cow, that guy has an axe the size of a skyscraper. How are we supposed to fight this? Are they kind of like the punks of Dynasty Warrior?
Kind of. They're sort of like the, maybe the more practical army. You know, it's like these games have gotten up to where they have like about 80 characters now. Sooner or later, you're going to run out of ideas for insane things, and you're just like, just make Khalik and give him a bow and arrow. You know, here's a guy with an eye patch and a sword that's bigger than he is, and he's fighting next to a really fat guy with a giant lollipop made of metal.
Is that a thing?
That's probably the easiest way to describe some of the weapons on the blue team.
I did notice one guy, he has 2 metal poles, and his name is Zaihao Yan. I'm probably butchering that so bad. I apologize to anyone who knows how to say these. First, I thought he had 2, like, shotguns, and then I realized they're just metal poles.
Not quite as effective as a shotgun, then.
No, it's not. The guy with the lollipop, would you say his name is Zuzu?
Yep, that's the guy. Yeah, big fat guy with a metal lollipop.
So he looks like someone put him in the front line with this weapon as a joke, but then he started hurting people with it. He looks like someone they just sent out as cannon fodder because they weren't too worried about what would happen, and then he somehow survived.
Yeah, he kind of like brings me to an interesting thing about Dynasty Warriors, which is that the voice acting in this game is probably best described as trying to be offensive. Like, this guy, his voice in Dynasty Warriors 2, 3, 4, he's like the, kind of guy who's not very smart and just likes to eat things. He's like, I'm gonna hit him with my big lollipop. I don't think that's an actual quote, but that's pretty much the way it goes. There's another guy named Zhang He, and these are all based on actual people from history. And I guess there weren't a ton of details about this dude, because the only characteristic that he really, like, personality that he has is that he appreciates beauty. So the way that they decided to portray this in the game was to have him act super effeminate. Like, that is just what they decided to do for Zhang He, and it is cringeworthy at times.
And I'm noticing here that he has, like, fans as weapons.
Some games they gave him fans. Some games they gave him, like, crazy-looking Wolverine claws. You're going through the character select, and you're like, oh, dude, I want the guy with, like, Wolverine claws. And then you pick him, and he's like, oh, this painting is beautiful. And you're like, okay, I am not comfortable with this anymore.
So what I gather so far is you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of characters to pick. Then you get into a fight, and you just start swatting guys left and right if you're everyone except for the Wu clan. Because they look like they can take down, like, one person at a time with their weapons, while everyone else looks like they can take out a city block with their weapons in one swipe.
You know, on top of the ridiculous weapons, every character gets what's called a Muso attack, which is basically a special attack where you kind of go into this nearly unbreakable combo that just, like, destroys everybody. And on top of that, some of the later games you can pretty much do it infinitely if you do it just right and you keep the combo going. Some of the other ones you can just, like, max out your bar so that, like, the combo goes on forever. There's actually a power up where your meter will be full. You'll have infinite meter for 10 seconds, which with these combos is an eternity. Like, that's basically just like a win a boss fight item.
Okay, I've talked to a couple people about this game who are in the camp of every single one of these is the best game ever crafted. And a lot of them will tell me it's so historically accurate. And you just told me that you can go into some sort of berserker god mode and take people out. There's no way that's historically accurate, and if it is, that would be awesome. Just watching a person explode into flames and then jump around a battlefield, murdering everyone, while watching his combo meter just keep ticking up. Was there just a person who followed him with a scroll of paper writing down how many people they killed?
It's got to be a tough job because, like, you're killing people so fast. You might kill, like, 10 people at once, and, like, this guy's got to be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's tricky to be the guy in charge of keeping the kill count. It looks ridiculous when you see it on screen. You're like, there's no way that is historically accurate. But, you know, most of these battles were probably, like, a handful of trained warriors fighting against, like, an army of, like, farmers that they just, like, grabbed and forced to be in the army and, like, they gave a pointy stick to, and they're like, you're in the Chinese army now. And then all of a sudden, like, Zhang He with his claws is just, like, carving through you. His Musou attack, it actually looks like he's, like, skating back and forth, like he's figure skating through the battle. So really just tripled down on the way they portrayed Zhang He in these games.
I don't know why they would be like, oh, he likes beauty, he must be this stereotypical way. Is there, like, someone out there who's like, man, I hate beauty? Are there people like, I don't like beautiful things? Why would they think that portrayal is the correct for, like, someone who likes something beautiful? I believe as a people, we all appreciate beauty. It's like, well, not everyone likes looking at a waterfall. Yes, everyone likes looking at a waterfall.
This guy likes waterfalls and flowers. Let's make him as offensive as we possibly can. It's like you found, like, some, like, redneck in Alabama driving, like, a Ford 350, and you're like, tell me what you think a guy who likes waterfalls would act like. And then they got him to design characters for Dynasty Warriors.
All the meetings start with, well, I'll tell you what. Oh no, here it comes.
Zhang He needs to be more sissified.
You can't say that.
I can. It's 2002. Who's gonna stop me?
It's not 2002. I think what it's like, I like Guitar Hero, and I got very good at Guitar Hero. And every once in a while, my friends would bring over Rock Band when we'd have a party. And we'd play Rock Band, and people who've never played Rock Band or Guitar Hero look at the TV screen, and the things happening on the TV screen seem impossible for your brain to comprehend. And watching any video of Dynasty Warrior is a little hard for just someone who hasn't dove into it for them to understand.
It is an impenetrable force, especially at this point in the series. Like, they are not tailoring it to new players so much. It just keeps building on itself, and, you know, the characters become more and more insane, and you're just sort of, like, already used to this, like, level of Dynasty Warriors craziness. And yeah, it's a tough game to pick up and play if you've never played Dynasty Warriors before. So if you are interested in getting into this series, I would recommend going back and playing like 2 or 3, because those are really the good ones in the series anyway. It's been kind of it's been on a downward spiral for like 10 years now. It's probably not going to get better. I know this is blasphemous to pretty much everybody, because critics are going to tell me, well, actually they're all terrible. And fans of Dynasty Warriors are going to tell me that I'm nuts, that it's better than ever. But 2 and 3 had strategic aspects to it that kind of got abandoned later on in the series. Like, you know, you have to pay attention to how the battle's going, and you have to make decisions on where you're going to join the battle and where you're going to concentrate your efforts. If you're going to try to rush the enemy leader or stay back and kind of protect your guy and work through the whole army. There's ambushes that you can get caught in sometimes. And later in the series, the battlefields got smaller and a lot easier to cross the whole thing. They started like giving you a horse automatically. And when you can get across the battlefield and go anywhere within like less than a minute, I'll just go over there, fix the problem, then run back down there and fix that problem. You know, in the earlier games in the series, you just couldn't move around the battlefield that quickly, and you really had to pay attention and decide, like, am I going to go up the left side of the map? Or am I going to go back and protect my leader? Or, am I going to try to take care of this enemy general who's just like stomping through all my guys? So yeah, 2 and 3 are probably the best of the series, I would say.
Did any of these games feature any sort of co-op?
Yeah. I don't know if they all still do anymore. For the 2 that I recommended, they definitely do. I've played this game with some friends. I played it with my brother a lot. It can be a lot of fun. I think one thing you gotta watch out for, though, is if I remember right, if one of you dies, it's battle over. You gotta make sure that like your partner isn't an idiot who just like charges off into the thick of things without any plan as to what he's gonna do when he gets there.
So you can't just play it like God of War and keep bashing the triangle button until you win.
In the later games, you kind of can. It was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like 2 and 3 came out, and people like me liked it, and other people were critical of it. And they're like, oh, you just keep pressing square over and over and over, and eventually you win. And later on, that's almost what the games became. They took out some of the strategic elements. They also, they added a thing where, combos could go on indefinitely as long as you keep hitting people. And, it really was just, the square gameplay experience.
So, going back, 99 Nights. Have you played that?
I have not. Is it about the year 1999 and, spending your nights listening to Limp Bizkit and Ricky Martin? Going off to see the Blair Witch Project in theaters.
Did you just find the 3 worst things you could list about 99 and then list them?
I'm a hockey fan from Buffalo. We lost in the finals that year, so this is not the worst thing that happened in 99.
No, I don't know what it was. I guess from what you're describing, it's a more I'd say a Dungeons and Dragons take on what you've been describing. So I guess I have actually played a Dynasty Warrior game. Microsoft gave Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires away for free with games with gold. And I tried that, and after about 5 minutes it told me I had lost. And from what you've told me up to this point, it's probably because my general got his face murdered, and I had no idea that I was supposed to be protecting him in any way, shape, or form. So that was my bad.
Yeah, there's so much going on in a Dynasty Warriors battle that it really can be overwhelming when giant armies on both sides and there's one guy you're supposed to protect and he's just some guy in the middle of a crowd of bodies flying everywhere with his name above him. And yeah, that can be tough. There were a few Dynasty Warriors offshoots that were the same gameplay but different settings. So 99 Nights sounds like it was one of them. There was the Samurai Warriors series, which didn't really... I think there were only 1 or 2 of those games. There's something called Dynasty Warriors Orichi, which has demons in it, I think. And then there's a Gundam Dynasty Warriors game also.
Okay, you now have my attention.
I think it's just called Dynasty Warriors Gundam. It might be called Gundam Warriors.
Pretty creative name there.
No, Dynasty Warriors Gundam. And it is pretty much what it sounds like. It's Dynasty Warriors, but with, battling robot guys and lasers and such.
I like battling robots with lasers and such. Wasn't there a Mario or a Legend of Zelda?
Yeah, there was Dynasty Warriors Zelda, or I think it was called Hyrule Warriors. And I've never gotten to play that. My brother had a Wii U, and I picked up a copy of the game for him, but it ended up that it was a used copy of the game, and it wasn't in great shape, it turned out. So instead of playing it, we had to return it. We did not get another copy of Hyrule Warriors. We got something...
If you got to ride Epona around and smack people with a sword, that would be pretty cool. I could get down with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it was. You play as Link, and you run around facing armies of... I never knew what the enemies in Zelda are called, but there's a lot of them. And... yeah, you just kind of take on armies and armies of cannon fodder from the Zelda universe.
So you said earlier that you could cross the field with a horse.
Yeah.
Is that you press a button and your character whistles and a horse just runs from off screen and you hop on him and go? Or is the horse just following you around and no one's smart enough to stab your horse?
Depending on the game, it's one of those 2 things. Either you can whistle for the horse and he shows up. Otherwise, you kind of just park him in the middle of the battlefield. And like nobody steals him, nobody tries to kill him. He's just sort of just there, and you got to run back to wherever you left him and pick him up again. But yeah, that's horses in Dynasty Warriors. And to be fair, horses are in all the Dynasty Warriors games, but it's only in the more recent ones where like you get them automatically and they're always there and they're easy to call to you. You know, in Dynasty Warriors 3, you could get an item called a saddle and then you'd start with a horse. But like if you ditched it somewhere, you'd have to go back to where you ditched it.
So you valet your horse.
Yeah.
Oh. So from everything you've described and looking at all the characters, all I can think is, man, this would make a great like real-time strategy game in the Command and Conquer StarCraft kind of vein, where you're an overlord commander with all these cool units. But I don't know, this doesn't sound as bad as I had always been led to believe.
I mean, it really depends on the game in the series. You know, earlier ones, pretty entertaining, but it really just kind of started to fall into its own worst tendencies as the series went on. I can't remember, it was either 6 or 7 was kind of a step back to the way it used to be, and it was kind of a fun game. For the most part, these haven't been great in a really long time. But as far as like them being great strategy games, they would be. And the reason I know that is that they make that. It's called Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and there's like 20,000 different titles of them.
Oh, well, I guess I'll have to go on Steam and buy one.
They used to be turn-based, and I think at least some of the newer ones are RTS. Maybe not all.
Let's say someone at Koei Tecmo hears this, and they're like, oh, man. And they knock on your door and say, we need you to design the next Dynasty Warriors. It's going to be called Dynasty Warriors Brad.
A lot of pressure now.
What's in Dynasty Warriors Brad?
A throwback to the gameplay of Dynasty Warriors 3. You're going to have to plan things out a lot more strategically. You can't just boss rush the whole stage. It's going to take longer to get around, and you're going to have to pay attention to how your armies are doing. At this point, I would probably ditch the Romance of the Three Kingdoms setting because, you know, they've made 9 of these games at this point, and they've run out of battles. You know, like, you have the Yellow Turban Rebellion in just about every game. You have the Battle of the Hulao Gate. There's a couple others that are in every game in this series, but then, like, you just try for something new, and it gets to the point where it's like, here's the Battle of Cao Cao went to the store and somebody tried to rob him. You know, some fresh blood, a new setting would probably not be a bad idea. You could, you know, it's kind of based on melee combat, so it would have to be something pre-Age of Gunpowder. But, you know, there's so many different settings you could try. You could have, like, Renaissance warriors or, you know, ancient Greece warriors or whatever. Ancient Greece warriors actually would be pretty awesome. You could use, like, characters from mythology. You'd have, like, the Battle of, you know, Jason goes for the Golden Fleece or, like, the Trojan War. You know, so, yeah, I guess that's what I'm going for is, like, or Dynasty Pirates, where you combine, like, Pirates Gold with Dynasty Warriors, and, like, every ship battle is, like, one of these, like, epic, like, 400 versus 400 hack and slash fest. So that's my 2 ideas for a Dynasty Warriors game, is either Mythology Warriors or Pirate Warriors, or Dynasty Pirates.
Did they ever get into, like, the Genghis Khan territory?
Not that I've seen. You know, Dynasty Warriors really kind of just keeps hitting on the same era because it's based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms novels. And, you know, I think that's maybe ends like 1,000 years before Genghis Khan was a thing.
So what we're dealing with here is the retelling of the book over and over, but just repackaged with better tech.
Yeah, they play around with the gameplay a little bit, you know, update the graphics and add some new features every time. But yeah, they're retelling the same tale over and over and over.
So it's a Zelda game.
Or really any Nintendo franchise.
Ouch. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. I just don't know. Was the the ones you recommended, that's PS2, right?
PS2, Dynasty Warriors 3 is also on the Xbox. They touched up the graphics a little. It's the better version, but not by a lot. And I don't think they did anything for compatibility for that game. So unless you have like an original gigantic 900-pound Xbox sitting somewhere in your house, I don't think you can actually play Dynasty Warriors 3 on the Xbox.
Who would have that, Brad, in their house 10 feet from where I am right now?
It would be weird if I had an Xbox in your house. So I'm going to guess that it's probably your Xbox.
I have a original Xbox with the controls that are roughly the size of the Starship Enterprise.
Of a dinner plate.
Yes. I bet eBay has a copy of that.
Oh, you could probably just go down to like Goodwill and find a copy of it in their used game section.
It still sounds incredibly impenetrable, but you gave me a spot to actually look at now, because at this point the new ones, like you said, most people dream of the day when games stop tutorializing you, and at one point Dynasty Warriors like, the only people playing this game are people who've played this game, because we got so many haters, we can stop tutorializing. And then I tried to enter the series, and I think it's Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, where he's like, hey, I think I've been in this place before, but I don't recognize it. That's kind of how you feel. You're like, I've played a video game before, but how do I play this video game? Please tell me, video game. And it's like, nah, just win.
You'll figure it out. Yeah, fighting games kind of have the same problem if a franchise goes on long enough, is like, you know, if you've never played Street Fighter before and then like you just tried to like jump into like Street Fighter 5, like, it's going to go badly.
I would say Dynasty Warriors is on a lot larger scale than that, though, because the first thing you see is like 6,000 guys running at you, and then your mini-map has like these warning things popping all over it, and the only thing you can really do is try to figure out the button to make your character sit down and start crying because you don't know what's happening. But I am going to attempt to give Dynasty Warrior a chance. I think I have 7.
I can't remember. It was either 6 or 7 I liked. You know, I played through it a bunch of times. It was kind of a throwback to the earlier games in the series. It might have been 7, so I would give that one a try. It might be hard to just pick up and play without previous D-dub experience, but you give it a shot.
Do we call it D-dub?
Maybe we call it D-dubs.
Wow. Yeah, it was GamePro. They used to have a Friday Twitter contest, and I entered it once, and they're like, you won, we're going to send you something. They sent me Dynasty Warriors 7. It was not a new copy either. I won like 5 games from them because no one entered their contest except for me and 6 other people. They sent me the Transformers game that went with the one where they went to the moon. That game was bad.
Wait, the game based on the bad Transformers movie was bad?
You'd think that like the game studio could make a fun game because they're not tied down by the story, because it's a prequel to the movie. So you could do whatever you want. And they're like, you know what we should do is make a crappy game.
I think a Transformers video game would kind of like right away expose the big flaw with Transformers as a concept, which is that when you're a giant battle robot, like there's no advantage into being able to turn into a van. You know, so like you'd be playing this game, you're like, yeah, I'm a robot with a giant cannon, I can kill everything, and then you're like, maybe I'll turn into a truck, and it's like, maybe I'll just stay a giant robot that can kill everything.
They had that one War for Cybertron that was really fun. It was like a cover-based shooter, but the maps were huge, and someone would call you and be like, you have to get over here right now. And you would actually have to transform into like future space car to cover the map quickly. So
couldn't the Transformers fly in their robot form? Am I remembering this wrong? But I thought they could kind of like fly.
I think it was like a limited hover kind of thing. Then later they're like, everyone has jet feet. Which, why didn't everyone pick to be a jet?
Maybe it was kind of like a draft, and it's like, I'm going to be a Lamborghini. I'm going to be an F-16. I'm going to be a Volkswagen Beetle.
How did Optimus Prime lose that draw? I'm going to be the slowest of all of you. And Shia LaBeouf is my friend.
Optimus maybe wasn't making great decisions.
Everyone feared him. He was the toughest robot. So, Dynasty Warriors, Brad. You have convinced me to try Dynasty Warriors 3 and or 7. Do you have any closing thoughts on Dynasty Warriors?
Not really. No. Shoot. I had something for this, but I really don't. No, one thing that we only sort of like barely touched on with Dynasty Warriors is that it is kind of sort of vaguely based on historical events, which can be kind of fun because, like, if you start playing a lot of Dynasty Warriors and you get used to what the characters look like and stuff, and then, like, you go into Chinatown in a large city, like, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing Dynasty Warriors characters, like, in knick-knack shops and stuff, so that's kind of fun. So, you know, if you're not going to play Dynasty Warriors for any other reason, it's worth it just so that, like, you can go into these stores and be like, oh, hey, it's Guan Yu, and then, like, the proprietor of the store will try to sell it to you for like $3 with a negotiable price.
Well, we haven't asked a big question for this. So, if you had to go get a beer with one Dynasty Warrior character, who would you go get a beer with?
Oh, all right. That is an easy one. It's definitely Zhang Fei. He's pretty much just like drunk all the time anyway. Loves to fight, loves to drink. He's got a scraggly looking beard. I think this is the guy to party with.
I am trying to find Zhang Fei. Oh, man.
Yeah, this guy rules.
Yeah, he looks like he can hold his beer. I'm just going to pick one off visuals.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the Wei clan. Zhang Liao. He has 2 axes, a feather on his hat that's majestically flowing, and he looks like he can party.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that guy's a rocker. That is definitely not a bad way to go.
He has a Trans Am, and he always has a Guns N' Roses cassette tape in that cassette player.
It's always appetite for destruction. There's no patience. There's no use your illusion. Like this guy, you jump in his car and it's just going to be like Paradise City and Welcome to the Jungle and Trans Am in it all over the place.
You'd think he would have Chinese democracy, but he knows what's really up. And I think Zhang He hangs with us. Definitely. I mean, he likes beautiful things. So we now know who to have a beer with. We now have talked me into playing a Dynasty Warrior game. I'd say that we've had a successful time here. Hopefully someone out there is like, now I know which one Dynasty Warrior to definitely play and one to maybe play. I'll report back if 7 is a good game or not. If I can find it.
Somebody from GamePro like snuck into your house and took it back in the middle of the night.
I can't believe they gave this away. Sid Schumann? What are you doing in my house? No, that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't have anything else. Hopefully I asked okay-ish questions. Having someone actually spend some time and explain this to me actually helped a lot to keep it from being the Guitar Hero of fighting games. If you want to follow us or get a hold of us, all that information's over in the show notes. And we want to ask you, the listener, a special request. Could you just tell one person about us? We'd like to grow just a little bit bigger and then maybe expand this a bit. We have plans because we're planners.
Yeah. So, if you tell one person and they tell one person and then they tell one person, pretty soon we can turn this show into a big old Ponzi scheme, but with downloads instead of your life savings. And it'll be great.
Yeah, when we run away with those downloads, you're going to be like, I did not see this coming. They have all the downloads now.
I'm ruined, except not.
If you could just tell one person, that would be swell. like I said, we have plans in the future, and the more people listening, the easier those plans will be to enact. And then you'll be like, oh, these plans are amazing. And or you'll be like, I wish they didn't do these plans. It's all a mystery.
Next week, we'll have one new listener, and it'll be a guy who's like, yeah, like 500 different people told me I had to listen to this podcast.
I mean, that's going to do it for us. I am Donald. That was Brad. And I would say goodbye in Chinese because that would have been appropriate, but I did not Google that. So, bye. Let me tell you about my Goodwill's game section.
Okay.
If you want to play sports games from anywhere between 2000 and 2016, they got you covered. Because that's all they got.
My Goodwill is pretty much the same way, except if you want to play an off-brand sports game from like 2000 to 2005, like you're not going to find Madden there. You're not going to find NBA 2K. But if you want to play like NFL Fever or like real sports basketball 1994 for the PC on